Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost? While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you. Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit sceducationlottery.com.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome, friends. It's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
In the race for the world's most advanced communications technology, together they will search, and the more they discover, the greater the danger.
I never saw an animal move like that.
We're getting out of here.
What about them?
Put them on the endangered species list.
From the best-selling novel by the author of Jurassic Park, Congo, where you are the endangered species.
Welcome to a movie film commentary track. My name is Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Brian, happy to be here.
and without you even having had your customary martini.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we're here to watch Congo.
Yes, and for me, this will be my second time watching Congo because I watched it for the first time to prepare for this commentary.
Well, this will be my third time because I've only seen it once more than you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So this is a movie that celebrated its 30th anniversary just a few weeks ago as we were recording this. And it is a movie we have gotten a ton of requests for. And so, as tends to be the case, I pitched it to Brian. I was like, hey, it's under 2 hours.
He knows my love language.
That's all it took. He's like, go on.
Yeah.
So this is based on the novel by Michael Crichton, although I think that's the extent of the involvement that Michael Crichton had in this film.
Right.
And it is certainly a time capsule, I will say that.
I love your tone. I'll certainly say that. I think this is going to be a fun one because as I often say, I love revisiting these 90s movies that I missed because by virtue of my age, I'm just very endeared to the filmmaking style of the 90s. And so seeing new artifacts from it is always delightful, especially ones as wacky as this one.
Indeed. Yeah. And that is, I think that is the right word for it. So with that in mind, I figured, hey, let's just dive right in. What do you think?
I'm ready.
So we will do the usual thing. We will hit play on 3. So 1, 2, 3, play.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do that right now. 1, 2, 3.
So this is 2 years after Jurassic Park, right?
2 years, yeah. So by way of context, the genesis of this project began many years before, but in the heat of Jurassic Park's afterglow, Hollywood was just ready to jump on anything that had the Crichton name attached, and this one had been working its way through the collective GI tract of the industry before it was finally expelled in 1995.
Michael Crichton's interesting because I was introduced to him, I think as most people around our age were, through Jurassic Park. And later I learned, then it was interesting to me to watch that Simpsons episode where they go to Itchy and Scratchy Land. And I think that that's based on Jurassic Park. And it partially is, but it's mostly based on Westworld.
Westworld, yeah.
Right? And so...
Yeah. I would say more so Westworld than Jurassic Park.
Definitely. And so... later in life, I realized that, Michael Crichton didn't sort of begin in the early 90s.
Yeah.
He was a successful author, director, screenwriter in the 70s.
Yeah, a computer programmer. I mean, he's a true jack of all trades.
Yeah, so this book came out in 1980, Congo.
Yeah.
And from everything I've heard through the research I've done, it's different, a little different than this movie. But, and, you know, any of the things that you nitpick in this movie, it sounds like the book is actually pretty good. Like people seem to like the book.
It's more of a straight ahead adventure. And I mean, the genesis of the story began with Crichton having directed a movie called The Great Train Robbery, which I think outside of the U.S. was called The First Great Train Robbery, but it starred Sean Connery. And so he was so enamored of his time with Sean Connery that he wrote Congo with Sean Connery in mind to play the adventurer who would lead the movie, you know, a great white hunter, Charles Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a character in the vein of Alan Quatermain of King Solomon's Mines.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that version of the movie didn't get made, although ironically, you know, Sean Connery did play Alan Quatermain, and it was his last movie, you know, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's pretty wild. The movie that pretty much made him retire.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but yeah, this had been Crichton had planned to direct this.
Okay.
And what it came down to, this was when it was at 20th Century Fox, and he said he would not do it unless he could have a real gorilla play the character of Amy.
Uh-huh.
Amy being a gorilla, just to clarify. And Fox was like, "Are you insane?"
Yeah, this is the early 80s attempt at making this movie. And you know what, though? I can appreciate his thinking, because I'm sure at that time, you know, I mean, you think of was it 77 King Kong?
Yes. 76, just before.
76.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's great, but it's a very much like a monkey suit.
Guy in a suit.
In a suit. And we still have guy in suit in this one, but the you know, you have servos in the head and great care being taken with their eyeballs and irises and things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've come a long way in terms of suits with, I mean, Stan Winston, for goodness sake, he's the guy who made the suit. So I can see his apprehension in the early 80s, wanting to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the screen. Bruce Campbell. I was surprised to see him in this.
Bruce Campbell was always a bridesmaid, never a bride when it comes to these movies, because he auditioned for the role of Dr. Peter Elliott, and that went to Dylan Walsh, so they let him be that guy who gets killed off early.
See, now I didn't know that, and I thought, I had no idea this was a Bruce Campbell movie. And
when you were watching,
I knew nothing about this except that the gorilla could talk, you know, through technology. I gotta say, I mean, just right off the bat, this movie, I almost felt like I was watching an inside joke I didn't get as I was watching it. I think it helps if you're going to watch this for the first time in 2025 to either have a fond nostalgia for it or to know what you're getting into.
Oh, 100%.
And I think I'm going to have a lot more fun watching it this time with you, knowing what it is. But all that to say, like, I just didn't find the leads very dynamic.
No,
which I think is a big problem.
Well, and it's puzzling because they're all decent actors.
Yeah, but they just don't pop. And it kind of makes me wish Bruce Campbell had been one of the leads in this thing. I think he would have brought an energy that would have really helped propel it along.
I agree with that. You could have put him in as Dr. Elliot. You could have made him Monroe Kelly.
Sure. Yeah. Either way.
I could have bought him. Although I like Ernie Hudson, but
I got to say, me too. I really love what he's doing in this.
But yeah, is just like in Dark Man 5 years earlier, you know, he had auditioned to play the main character. Mm-hmm. They gave him the little cameo at the end, and that's essentially Bruce Campbell in this.
Yeah, and then he's in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and basically just gets to punch himself in the face for 2 minutes. You know,
that's right.
You just can't get a break.
And in all three Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies also.
Right. But it's interesting because, and when I say with dynamic leads, it's not star power, because I mean, you look at Jurassic Park 2 years earlier, those people weren't stars, really.
That's right.
I mean, it wasn't Harrison Ford or whoever, but they're perfectly cast. whatever it is that they possess as people, they make those characters interesting. And unfortunately, I'm not getting that shining off of this cast.
Yeah. Well, what it is really is that everybody is kind of in their own. They're on each on a different highway. They're not even in a different lane.
Please expand on that, because I agree. Yeah.
Well, like Joe Don Baker over here, who is energetic to maybe a maximal degree. I'm like, bro, like just tone it down a little, man. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and Tim Curry, like it feels like Tim Curry understood the assignment.
He did.
He's playing this really fun, colorful side character. Well, that's the thing too. I was reading people's takes on this, and it was saying some people realized they were in a comedy, and others didn't realize they were in a comedy.
Yeah. Well. So rewatching this, yeah. Generally, you don't want to find a eyeball in your hand. You know?
So gross. Makes me think of Minority Report. Eyeball stuff is just not for me.
Not a fan. Gross. No, not a fan. And I should say Joe Don Baker, R.I.P., because he just like within the last 2 months he passed away.
Oh.
A very unique presence. I put him in the same bucket as like M.M. at Walsh. You know,
totally.
Just a type all by himself. You know,
totally. Yes.
But no, as I said, I had watched this. I rented this on VHS from Hollywood Video shortly after it came out. And then, you know, I haven't watched it since, and rewatching it now for this commentary track, I was like, man, I'm getting WPWR syndicated.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Like Saturday afternoon syndicated show energy.
Zachy, this is literally what I wrote word for word in my notes. Feels like a cross between a WGN Saturday afternoon syndicated television series with a Disney Sunday night movie. Unbelievable. Yes, that's exactly what this is. And so, but here's the thing. As I'm watching the screen now and we're talking about it, I am feeling more charitable toward it.
Sure.
And like, oh, this thing, right. And then I know that this guy is very funny and doesn't care about his son. He cares more about diamonds. And like, I kind of have a chuckle already at the ready as I'm watching this. And the first time I thought I was watching, certainly not Jurassic Park, but like, a pretty good blockbuster from the 90s. That's what I thought I was getting into.
I would assume that's what audiences thought they were getting, which would explain why it did very well.
Yeah. It opened really well. It was a $50 million budget. Ultimately in the US and Canada made 81 million, worldwide 150 million.
150
in
million.
95.
Yeah. So, I mean, it ended up doing okay. I will say, I remember very distinctly my interest in this film was twofold. Number one, the Crichton of it all got me intrigued. And, they had the whole marketing campaign. They had a whole bunch of toys and things, which, dude, the notion of a toy line for this movie is like comical, right? It might as well be like the Philadelphia action figure line on SNL, because this is not a particularly toyetic movie, right? However, so it was like, oh, kids, go see this. But also in the mid 90s, I remember this was in the lead up to potentially a new Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh, interesting.
And at the time, there was like, oh, Stan Winston's going to do the effects. And I was like, well, Stan Winston's doing the apes in this. Let's see like how that might look, And then you had Jerry Goldsmith doing the score. I'm like, hey, Jerry Goldsmith doing the score of an ape adjacent movie, Very much not that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to place it in the timeline of, the era, this beat Casper, which is kind of interesting. And then the next week it was overtaken by Batman Forever. So that's kind of what was going on when this came out. But
interesting.
You know what's funny though? I mean, well, I guess we're getting to it right now. Well, we should talk about what happened a little bit. So we open where this like telecom company, I guess they're mining for diamonds in this remote area that will, I don't know, make the stuff that they produce function better, right? And so they have this team over there on an expedition, and it looks like they're getting attacked. We see like a blurry gorilla type figure in front of the camera. They don't know exactly what's going on. And the head of the company, that's his son who's over there, right?
Yeah.
Who looks like he's being attacked by a gorilla. So his Bruce Campbell, the guy over in the encampment, his ex-fiance is like, we have to go over there and help him. And the dad's like, yeah, absolutely. And then
he's like, diamond, ooga booga, diamond.
Exactly. And she's like, no. I need you to tell me we're doing this because you love your son.
Yes, I love my diamond. I mean, son.
Exactly. That's basically what the first 10 minutes of this movie are. Yes. So we know that this guy is capital E evil. Willing to let his son die so he can get diamonds that will help his business. And we have the, ex-fiance who's willing to travel over.
They should have had him absent-mindedly polishing a diamond. And then he looks up and says, yes, I mean my son. And then he goes back to polishing.
Yes, it's sort of like Mr. Blackheart from The Simpsons with the ivory boots, the ivory. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I will admit, it took me a minute. No, not a minute. When the movie was over, I was like, how did all these people come together on this same expedition? I didn't understand.
You have to connect the dots a little bit.
Yeah, 2/3 of it makes sense to me. I'm not sure how Laura Linney was aware that this plane was leaving. But she's the one who's willing to fund it. So that's how they all need one another, basically. But
yeah, I think it's happenstance.
Amazing.
I think, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, hey, I don't know. But it seemed like it was a little different in the book, a little streamlined. But anyway, no, that's Mary Ellen Trainor.
Right? Look at that. Yeah. We got a little mini Goonies reunion in here because we got Joey Pants in just a little bit too.
I was surprised and delighted to see him. Yep.
Yeah, and it's weird how it's episodic where you just have people kind of wander in and out.
Mm-hmm.
People who are just familiar enough wander in where you're like, hey, where are you going?
Yeah. You expect them to be bigger characters.
Yeah. And by the way, the Grant Heslov as a likable doomed partner.
Yeah.
Tell me you can see the bullseye in that guy's head.
I know. And I was actually thinking he had to go out. I don't know where they are, like Costa Rica or something. And there's entire scenes where he doesn't say anything. Mm-hmm. He's just standing there. Yeah. And then he gets one line I don't like the looks of this, kind of stuff. And I was like, man, what a sort of thankless role. Although every time it focuses on him, I'm happy. If I was in a test screening on the card, I would put, please, a little bit more of his flavor.
A little more Faisal or whatever his name is in this movie.
Yeah. Richard.
That's it.
Yep. So speaking of this, Tim
I don't know. Tim Curry's up to no good there, Brian. I don't know.
Yeah. I almost wish he had something that showed a little bit more adventure in his costuming, why he stands out, why is this guy in this meeting? You know what I mean? Like a Indiana Jones hat and then a scarf or a handkerchief or something. I don't know. I'm turning it into a full cartoon. But the Amy, speaking of the gorilla costumes, look, do they entirely hold up to a 2025 eye? I don't know. That's kind of up to you. Amy completely worked for me.
I think Amy and the Silverbacks worked. I think the normal gorillas, not the mutant gorillas.
Agreed. Yeah. No. Yeah. The Silverback looks incredible.
Yeah.
Amy looks a little slightly more humanoid, I think, because they needed her to have an expressiveness.
Yeah.
Which I really loved. I loved Amy. I thought she was sweet, and I was like, no. Take care of her. She needs to be protected. So in terms of that, all that completely worked for me in this movie.
So here's James Karen, another character actor who's a whole long list of credits. He's in the original Return of the Living Dead, and he is in Superman Returns.
Wow.
And actually, while we're talking about Superman, Dylan Walsh, he was recently a regular on Superman and Lois. He played General Sam Lane, Lois's father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was, of course, about 10 years after this movie, he came to renewed fame because he was the co-lead of Nip Tuck alongside Julian McMahon.
I swear I didn't even put it together. I didn't really watch Nip Tuck, so he's not at the forefront of my mind, but I was like, man, that guy's face looks so familiar. But he's got this really shaggy, curly hair here. He looks very different.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm sort of used to seeing him with the old guy face
Yeah. Maybe that's it too. Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, I guess he was young at one time.
Right. The plot again here is Amy is making all these drawings of the jungle, and so her trainer or whatever you would call him is like, I think it's time for her to go back home. Right.
See, and the thing, what I bump up against is I believe that these primates have a certain level of innate intelligence. I think ascribing language to them is maybe a bridge too far, right? Like even these apes that are taught sign language. I mean, I think that it's, they're not experiencing cognition the way we do.
I'm glad you brought that up, Zachy. So Amy obviously reminded me of Coco.
Of Coco, right?
Who was a very famous gorilla. Geez, when? Like when 80s? We were growing up.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually wait, hold on. This is the thing. See, I wasn't quite tracking. So obviously he's going, and he just did a seminar, Dr. Peter.
Yes.
Talking about how Amy can communicate, and it sounds like she wants to go home, so we're going to take her home. And she's been making these drawings, and in her drawings of the jungle, she included a picture of an eye. Right.
Right.
So Tim Curry, who's attending this, he is
Herkimer Homolka.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Tim Curry. I'm just making a note at the beginning of this so people understand. But
you put some respect on Mr. Homolka's name.
Yeah, Homolka. It's like Bob Loblaw. So anyway, Tim Curry, again, I don't know why he's attending the seminar, but he sees this eye that looks just like an eye. Yes. And it's like, that looks like that very specific eye that I have on this ring that comes from this lost city.
And this sinister music on the soundtrack cues us in that something is afoot with this fella.
He has motives. Yeah. So he wants to get in on this journey because he thinks wherever maybe this ape or a gorilla has seen the very place that he's looking for, where he can find all these diamonds, right? So that makes sense why he's like, okay, buddy, let me join you, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't understand how Laura Linney's character, because she needs to go over and save her coworkers.
Yes.
I didn't understand how she ended up at the airport on this flight. Now, obviously, they need her because they're out of funds. They can't pay for the fuel, and she has unlimited funds.
Yes.
I just didn't understand how she knew. Like you said, happenstance. She shows up at the exact right moment.
She had said at the company, find an expedition that's going, and we'll be on the next one.
I see.
And it just so happens to be the expedition with Peter Elliott and Amy.
Okay, see, there you go.
And Mr. Homolka.
This rewards multiple viewings.
There you go.
Make sure you catch every detail.
Now, tell me if you didn't think that at some point in the movie it would be revealed that Tim Curry's accent was just a put on.
I wish I had, but I would have loved that.
It's so over the top. We're going. I'm happy to fund your trip. And then at some point he's like, right, I don't really talk like that. And then
that, yes, at gunpoint or something.
Yeah.
And just like, oh no, please. Kind of like Alan Rickman does in Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Slip into that kind of a thing. Oh no, like that would be amazing. Missed opportunity.
I'm just saying, this movie is full of actors who are putting on these accents where you have to imagine at least somebody was like, are you sure?
Right.
Because we got all kinds of fun. We got accent musical chairs. We got Delroy Lindo doing one thing. We got Ernie Hudson doing another.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're going to get the martini. Amy needs her martini while she's on the plane. I like this actually, by the way, where she's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Amy looking out the window and like, where's the ground? I don't know. I was very endeared to I got to give it to Stan Winston because I really cared about this character.
Yeah. No, but what we were talking about earlier, if you look at like how apes communicate, they never ask questions.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, okay, so this is from Wikipedia, straight from Wikipedia, because I thought all of it was interesting and I didn't want to paraphrase.
So consider the source.
Yeah, well, true. But this is about Coco, who, when we were growing up, was a famous gorilla that could sign. And I think people got really endeared to the idea of like, wow, isn't that amazing? Like maybe we could talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So Coco, which was a nickname, was I'm reading now, was a female Western lowland gorilla born in the San Francisco Zoo and cross-fostered by Francine Patterson, who conducted ape language experiments. Coco gained public attention as the subject of 2 National Geographic cover stories, and in 1985, the best-selling children's book, Coco's Kitten.
I remember that book.
So Coco's communication skills were hotly debated. Coco used many signs adapted from American Sign Language, but the scientific consensus to date remains that she did not demonstrate the syntax or grammar required of true language. Patterson has been widely criticized for misrepresenting Coco's skills, providing insufficient care for Coco and her companion gorillas, and inappropriate treatment of Gorilla Foundation staff members. Despite such controversies, Coco's story changed the public image of gorillas, previously assumed to be brainless and violent. Science, I think this is a magazine, noted in its obituary that Coco helped transform how the human world viewed animal emotion and intelligence. So, yeah, in my memory, I was like, oh, yeah, there's a gorilla. It understood sign language, and if I met it, it could talk to me.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, of course, in 1985, I was a kid, so of course I believe that, reading Coco's Kitten. But apparently that's not exactly the case.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, right? Like, I think the fact that these amazing, beautiful creatures are vaguely human-ish, you know, we ascribe a human level intellect onto them, and I think that's what gets people into a lot of trouble, you know.
Yeah, and I think
they
the
still
same
animals.
Exactly. I was going to say the same goes for even house pets, dogs,
sure,
cats. Of course, like dogs can understand, generally speaking, a certain amount of words. When you say walk or dinner or something, they know at least what that sound means for them, right? But it's like we want them to think, oh, he's hugging me right now, and it's like kind of,
right, right, exactly. That's exactly it. I remember reading about in a similar vein to Coco, the Travis the chimp.
I don't remember Travis.
And I guarantee you know the story. It's about a woman who raised this chimpanzee, and she raised him like a son. And then at one point, he attacked her neighbor. Do you remember this?
Vaguely.
He did such damage to her face that she needed a full face transplant.
See, I think I remember that part of it. A woman, the transplant, and dealing with
right. And the ape was eventually put down, and it was a horrible story, right? Mm-hmm. And my point is that they're still animals,
Yes.
So they should be treated with kindness and compassion, and they should be left alone because they're not people.
Yeah, the understanding that they're not going to ever fully behave or have the moral sense of humans.
Right.
Like they're going to have these instincts that could come out at any moment.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is this movie presents Amy as if Amy is a fully interactive, a cognizant creature.
Mm-hmm.
And there's never any sci-fi gobbledygook explanation for that.
Yeah, she hasn't been altered or something.
Yeah, and I'm like, I would have almost preferred that because that would make it easier to swallow,
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because there is like a fantasy element to this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird how the movie doesn't really prepare you for that.
No. Yeah.
Right? It's about an hour and a half of just traipse through the jungle, and then 20 minutes of what feels like a Universal stunt show.
Yes.
Right.
It really does.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the way that the sets look, and very static. Yeah, it's funny. Ernie Hudson.
So Ernie Hudson, the man, the myth, the legend. I think I can speak for you when I say that here at MovieFilm we celebrate Ernie Hudson in all his configurations.
Absolutely. I even had the pleasure of meeting him. He voiced a dog that I wrote for Puppy Dog Pals, and I got to go to the record, shake his hand. That was really special.
Now, he has said that Monroe Kelly is the favorite character he has played.
I completely understand why.
Right?
Right? He's getting to have some fun with this.
He is the de facto, adventure lead of this movie.
Yeah, and he's got this sort of debonair, affect. Of course, why,
yes,
because the jungle is a house of many mysteries. Kind of a speaking kind of thing, which is really fun.
So that all being said, as much as I do enjoy Ernie Hudson in this movie, I would say maybe the accent wasn't the best choice.
It's funny. Yes, the objective answer is yes. However, if I'm just going to lean into what's going on here and everything is as wacky as it is, if he's having fun, I can pretty much sense it. I can sense it coming off of him, how much fun he's having, and I'm in. And frankly, if they had done more stories with him,
sure,
like more movies or a series with him as the lead, leading different sorts of interesting people through the jungles or whatever, that would be. I think he's an interesting enough character.
I think they missed out on that opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
And he does get one of the best lines. I'm the great white hunter, except I'm black.
Right. That's right. Right. Written by a Pulitzer Prize winner, by the way, this movie. I don't know if we brought that up yet.
Yeah. So Michael Crichton had nothing to do with this once it landed at Paramount. And I think, I'm your great white hunter, though I happen to be black.
Yeah. But you basically karaoke'd that right for me. That was perfect. That was fun looking at him and hearing your voice come out of his
my
mouth.
less impressive voice. Yeah. I'm telling you, give me more Ernie Hudson. Give me, if they do another Ghostbusters and the other OGs decide not to come back and we just get 4 clones of Winston Zeddemore, I would still be down with that.
Same.
But yeah, Michael Crichton had no involvement in this, and so you had the Amblin connection because of Frank Marshall. I don't think the movie is Amblin.
Wow, great point.
Right?
I don't think it is either. And does that have to do with it being released through Paramount?
That would be my guess. But nonetheless, Frank Marshall and Kathy Kennedy did produce it.
Yeah, and Frank Marshall directed it.
And Frank Marshall directed it. Frank Marshall's an interesting director, right? Because I think there's I think he's a competent director, but I don't know that he ever really elevates a movie.
Yeah, he did a lot of second unit for Spielberg, so he's got chops. He's got an eye.
I think on Raiders, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and that's where he met Kathleen Kennedy, and they got married. And then, he did Arachnophobia, which I think is an Amblin movie.
Yes.
Those
he did
sorts
Alive.
Of things. Oh, did he do? I've never seen Alive, actually.
Alive is good. I liked Alive.
I think I was a little afraid of it, honestly. As a kid, but I'm a little old. Being a little older, I think I might be able to handle it now. But now he does music documentaries, like Beach Boys, and just interesting. A very interesting career.
Yeah. So the movie was offered to Steven Spielberg at one point,
which you can completely imagine. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is pre-Jurassic. This is in the 80s. And he passed. John Carpenter had been offered it. So it was working its way. And again, the hook really came once Jurassic Park just started minting money.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can understand the calculus of Paramount being like, hey, that they made all that Michael Crichton money. We want some of that Michael Crichton money.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
However, I think the miscalculation is this idea that people will treat mutant apes the same way they did, living CGI dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agreed. But when I alluded earlier about the Pulitzer Prize, so John Patrick Shanley wrote the screenplay. He wrote Moonstruck, Doubt.
Yeah, won an Academy Award for Moonstruck, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. And I think the Pulitzer for Doubt. And Congo. So very interesting, isn't it?
And he directed Joe versus the Volcano.
I love Joe versus the Volcano.
There you go.
What an interesting... I'd call that an aspirational writer's career.
Absolutely.
You got your goofy blockbuster, say what you will about it. You've got your prestige piece. You've got your weird Joe versus Volcano, kind of like your weird indie film that's very quirky and fun. Interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of quirky and fun, Delroy Lindo, again, he just wanders in for a scene.
And
He
leaves a
does kind of a-
humongous impression.
He really does. There's another one. Like, same with Joey Pants, he just leaves the movie. And Delroy Lindo, you're like, hey, where are you going?
Yeah. But no, he's great in this. He needs to be bribed.
I saw this movie one time 30 years ago, and yet to this day, just randomly, I'll be like, stop eating my sesame cake.
See, that was fun for me because I remembered that. I was like, what is happening? And then when I started reading up on this movie afterward, I just kept seeing that quote everywhere. I was like, oh, that's what lived on from this. I love this too, the bribing, giving him the money. He's like, more, just smiling. It's so great. You know what I love too? This little detail. He puts the money in a like a brown grocery sack, and then he just starts stapling it.
It.
What a great detail. Here we go. If we want to call out possibly the moment of the movie.
Stop. You don't eat a man's sesame cake, Brian. That's what this movie taught me.
So
There's
funny.
some things you just do not do.
Right. Well, speaking of Spielberg and all those connections, this was shot by the DP of E.T., Alan Davia. So he was the DP on E.T., Color Purple. He also did Bugsy, Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life. Yeah, actually, I got to see him speak once. He spoke before a screening of E.T. at the New Beverly. That was really special.
And he could not stop talking about Congo, right?
But
he's like, I know you guys are here about E.T., but let me tell you about Congo.
Well, it's fascinating because you look at this scene and it's lit great. And there was a scene on the airplane earlier where Laura Linney was lit really beautifully and dramatically and stuff. But then to your point, we can dig into it more when it happens. But in the third act, it doesn't look very good at all.
Yeah, there is like a sudden and pronounced tonal and visual shift.
Yeah, and I'll save it, so make sure we still have some things to talk about at the end. But there was Stan Winston digs into that a little bit in a way that I just hadn't crossed my mind, that I found kind of fascinating and instructive for anybody looking to shoot a movie. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
my understanding, I have not read the novel, but my understanding is that in the book you have multiple expeditions that are sort of competing with each other to get to.
It's a race.
City of Zinj, right?
Yes.
And my thought watching the film is, well, why would you not keep that element of drama in the movie? Because there is something weirdly languid about the entire front 2/3.
Yeah, I mean, it's I like Lord of the Rings, but I think some people, the criticism is like, so they just walk for like 2.5 hours. And that's but I would argue that it's very interesting and the characters are very interesting and they encounter a lot of interesting things along the way. And this one, the first 2/3 is literally just them traipsing through the jungle.
It's literally here to here, something happens, something happens, something happens. Here to here, something happens, something happens, something happens. Here to here, something happens, something happens, something happens.
And it's not all really related either. Like I'll call it out early, but there's a really random moment where a snake shows up.
Yes.
And then the guy just goes, oh, and then like cuts its head off with a sword. And it's like, then crossfades and they continued to walk. Like it's just so like such a non-event.
The pacing is off for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know why they didn't keep that extra tension element from the book.
Well, and I think the problem is that if you say, oh, we're going to rescue Bruce Campbell, even that, it feels so out of sight, out of mind. Right. So maybe increase that element. Maybe he's, he's not dead yet and he's getting these messages out and Laura Linney's character is receiving them. And so there's a sense of like, we got to get to him before it's too late kind of thing.
I totally, completely agree. So Amy there, just kind of with her hand on the doctor's leg and just the way that they're close. And then the people who are loading the plane are like, husband and wife. But you know what's so funny? I was like, hey, shut up. Like, because I was like, it's so sweet. I was listening to the How Did This Get Made about this episode in preparation.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And they were joking about how like kind of gross and semi-erotic it seems between And I was like, I get it for like comedy sake and whatever. And maybe if I was in the,
I don't really get that sense.
I was going to say, if I was in the right mood, like, oh yeah, okay. But no, I didn't either. I actually found it very sweet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought they calibrated that pretty well. Their connection and how much Amy, loves her, I don't know what you call him, trainer?
Husband, apparently.
Husband, yeah, exactly. So this is kind of a crazy moment.
I know.
Hermacher.
It's Hermerker Homolka. Thank you very much.
You know what? Yeah, okay.
Or her Kermer, whatever the hell.
I'll keep it open on my laptop so I have it in front of me. But yeah, we see some racist undertones here.
He goes from 0 to N-word pretty fast.
Yeah, which feels like, why are we doing that?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Well, I think a couple reasons. I think number one, they want to situate Homolka as not a good guy.
Sure.
And that's if you didn't get that sense already, that'll take you the rest of the way. And then they want to situate Monroe as the alpha, if you will.
Sure.
Like he ain't standing for that shit.
Sure. Yep.
Right.
And he's not rattled by it. Like he doesn't even rattled's not even he's not like sent into like an angry mode. Like he's still confident and like F you.
See, I would have liked, and I'm not even saying this as a joke, I would have liked if he just like popped him in the face. Like it doesn't get angry, but just like a pop, right?
With a smile.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I think I like that too.
Like, what was that? Kind of thing.
Yeah, not a smile. That's the wrong. But yeah, exactly. Like still like a confidence. Like I'm. Yeah. Exactly. I'm the alpha here.
Yeah.
So this is leading to something very fun. They have to sedate Amy, so they put a little pill in her banana because there's no way you're going to get Amy to jump out of an airplane.
Makes sense.
Totally makes sense. I was going to say something, but this is kind of interesting. Like them almost being shot out of the sky here. These rocket launchers. Yeah, dude. I even watching Amy now freaking out. I this is a complete success to me. I felt everything they wanted me to feel for her.
I think I mean, considering that we're talking about a 30-year-old effect, I think it does the trick. I think obviously technology has improved to the point where now you could do something much more compelling via motion capture, but given what was available at the time, I think it does the job.
Yeah, I think they're getting better and better at that. These fully CG characters.
Yeah,
I think sometimes the mistake is they make them behave like animated characters in a live action setting, and that always throws me off. They move in this very Disney-esque, overly gestured manner.
Yeah,
and that's just not how people move in the real world.
Right. That's right.
So maybe that's why I'm responding a little bit better to this, because it feels a bit more tangible. But yeah, like you're saying, I mean, they've gotten much, much better at it. And the Planet
like when you look at the recent Apes films, certainly the Andy Serkis ones, I mean, I think on the whole they've done a good job.
Yeah.
And this is how we know Karen is a badass.
Exactly. Yeah, we get to see her fire a weapon, and it is funny. I mean, they mentioned that they're heat seeking, but it still feels like their aim is pretty impeccable. Shooting like flares. I don't know that those are the most accurate in their. Well, maybe they are. What do I know?
And we know she's a former CIA agent, which really means that she is a current CIA agent. Because
right.
Nobody's a former CIA agent,
So we get this kind of funny moment here where it's like, well, someone's got to get Amy out of here. So basically, Captain Monroe wears her like a backpack.
Yep.
As he jumps out of the plane. It's kind of funny.
Now we were talking about the Tim Curry character. I think what's interesting also is that he's like a bad guy, but he's also kind of not really. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right. Which was also kind of weird to me. Like you're sort of expecting a much more drastic heel turn from him.
Yeah, where he's like willing to sacrifice everybody or something. He's interesting. I'm not quite sure. He's I wouldn't call him like sleazy,
he ends up being kind of like Kevin J. O'Connor in The Mummy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Whereas, like the way the first time we see him and we get the dramatic music, you expect a kind of a thing where he points his gun at the other people in the expedition, and he's got his little satchel full of diamonds.
That's
and
what
he's
I'm
like,
saying.
"Smell you later, suckers!"
Exactly. Like, I'm taking the plane.
Yeah,
Like, what about us? Like, what about you? And then like shuts the door or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he turns around and there's all the gorillas and they bash his head in or something. Like, that's what you're expecting.
Oh, that's great. And then the plane starts rocking because he's being killed inside, and you're like, ah!
Right.
I love it. But nope.
Yeah. So something substantially lesser than that.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention, by the way, Mr. Echo.
Oh yeah.
And I will not even attempt to pronounce his name.
I know. I feel bad. Out of respect and also possibly disrespect. That's yeah. What was I gonna say? Was somewhere I kind of missed it, but I guess Jimmy Buffett plays a pilot in here.
That's kind of his thing, right? He just plays pilots.
Yeah.
Because he was in something else as a pilot, and now I'm trying to remember.
Pilot, I don't remember. I remember Jurassic World. He's the guy grabbing his margarita or whatever.
At the Jimmy Buffett restaurant.
Yep. As the dinosaurs are attacking. No, I thought this was kind of interesting. So, speaking of Ernie Hudson's character, and well, I'll get to that. But basically, as I do now with these older movies, I go straight to Siskel and Ebert afterward on YouTube and try to find the review.
They had some disagreements about this one.
Oh man, well, it was hilarious because they had their back and forth. Honestly, felt like the war inside of me after my first viewing. So Ebert kind of enjoyed it as like a silly, like kind of throwback jungle adventure, probably like movies he watched when he was a kid. Then Siskel is just like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I wasn't laughing with it. I was laughing at it. And I was like, yeah, that's funny. I kind of feel both inside of me. And Ebert was like, oh, come on. Ernie Hudson's playing this kind of Cary Grant style figure. And Siskel's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It was really funny. But anyway, Ebert then went on
he called Ernie Hudson a lightweight, and I said, how effing dare you?
I know. But Ebert wrote later, he does say Congo is a comedy that was mislabeled as an action drama and has suffered as a result. And I was like, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how the filmmakers would take that. I don't think I would call it an out and out comedy.
No, but
I think it could have leaned into a little bit of a
teeters on the edge.
Yeah. I think it could have leaned into its camp, possibly a little bit more than it does.
Look, I mean, listen, it's very simple. Paramount wanted a Jurassic Park.
Yes,
and that's essentially what it comes down to. Is that I think, as written, when you say it's kind of an Alan Quartermain, King Solomon's Mines type thing, that was the angle they should have taken tonally.
Totally, yes.
Right? And that means it should have been a little more heightened from the jump. And I think that's the big problem is and you tell me if you disagree, but by the time we end up in the Lost City,
mm-hmm.
I'm like, what in the, what? How did we end up here? Right? Because it's such a left turn from everything that we're led up to at this point,
Yeah.
And I think what they really needed to do was seed that storyline more methodically throughout. So, and I don't know, it's not like you can have them encounter the mutant gorillas much earlier.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean seed sort of a heightened mythic?
Yeah. So let me put it this way. When they open the Ark at the end of Raiders, you are mentally prepared for that because the movie has done the job of walking you there.
Yes, we've seen some odd things along the way.
That's right. So like when we see the Ark on the boat and it burns out the Nazi symbol, or even at the very beginning when Indy cracks the book and he's like, "Here you go," and there's the power of God, and whatever, right?
Yeah. And so when he's in that household and they're talking about going to the Ark, and then all this huge wind comes through, like basically God being like, "Stop." It's seeded very well.
So the movie is set. It's letting you know, okay, this is the kind of movie this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know what Jurassic Park does when you think about it is the very first scene. It helps establish the exact tone of what you're going to get for the rest of the movie. You know, with the raptor and Muldoon and all that. You know,
Shooter.
Exactly right. It sets your compass for the whole movie. However, what Jurassic Park also does is we see the dinosaurs within, you know, whatever it is, like 20 minutes.
Right.
So it's not like suddenly we see a brachiosaur at you know, an hour 40.
Right.
Whereas this movie is, oh, and by the way, here's some mutant apes.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, like, I think that's the problem is it's playing kind of weirdly comically earnest. Right. Again, you know, Joe Don Baker as evil McEvilman.
Yeah.
Johnny Mustache Twirler in your parlance. You know? and I think so it needed more of a heightened adventure tone so that when we get to the Lost City, it feels of a piece with everything we've seen up to that point.
I totally agree. Yep.
Now, does it feel like the movie couldn't decide whether they were going to have a romantic relationship between Karen and Peter?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember enough but yeah, they probably had some moments where they could have had a moment like, sharing a tent? No tent? We have our own tents? Okay. Yeah. You know, like maybe you could have had like some playful things like that. But then she thinks she's going to rescue someone who's very close to her. So maybe that's the...
Right. But I mean, you know, he is her ex-fiance after all. So
that's true.
Can't be that close. Come on.
But you know what? Frankly, to your point, it would have been nice if Campbell was still alive.
Yeah.
And this is like rekindling something for her in a way, or at the very, well, it doesn't even have to be rekindled, but there's like something powerful there between them that's compelling her to go through hippo infested waters.
Yeah.
You know, hell or high water or whatever, hell or hippo infested waters.
Yeah.
To go get them. You know, I would have enjoyed seeing that energy from that character. I think might have heightened things a bit.
I think the problem is that Peter is kind of just a void, isn't he? Like, he's just not a particularly compelling character beyond his affinity for Amy.
I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I generally like Dylan Walsh as an actor, so I know he's capable of more, but it really, like, it's just the character is a whole lot of nothing. And he's ostensibly the lead of this movie.
Yeah. Right.
And he gets brushed aside almost, you know?
No, I completely agree. Yeah. He's too realistic. Like, he's probably someone you would encounter like this in real life. And it's like, you know, in the movie, you want someone, I don't know.
Well, you can see the energy that Bruce Campbell would have brought to this role. So it does feel like a shame that they didn't go. Like, maybe you swap it.
Yeah. Well, and then him going toe to toe with Humbuck Homlocker. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, slow your roll there, Homlocker. You know, like that kind of energy from Campbell would be kind of fun, seeing them go toe to toe, but they're both in pursuit of the same destination, but for different reasons, different energies. This is that snake thing I was talking about that felt so random. And it just ends. Like, it's not a set piece.
Right.
You know, it's like, almost feels like they actually killed a snake, and they're like, well, out of respect, we should at least include it.
We should leave it in so that his family knows what happened to him.
That's poor snake. His family's in the movie theater like, wait, isn't that Jeff? He's been missing for 9 months. Yeah.
Mom, when is Dad coming home?
Oh.
Yeah. Lie down, kids. Or just stay where you are.
Stay where you are. Yeah, exactly. I feel bad for this poor frog. Frog doesn't know it's in a movie.
Was that a real frog? I mean, it could have been like a little doodad, right?
You know what? That's probably true. Where was I reading? There was something about, they thought about, oh yeah, I have it here. So I guess Frank Marshall thought about using computers for the apes.
Yes, that's right.
Because of, you know, obviously Jurassic Park, but it was the hair. Computers just weren't capable of it yet.
Yeah, and it's extraordinary because you had you know, by the way, you generally the prospect of leech on penis is probably reason number one. You're not going to see me go out into the deep dark woods.
But isn't this, it's funny, and it's like an like moment you remember, but like Doesn't it just feel so random? Like you could just imagine they're like, all right, well, what's some stuff that can happen in the jungle? Like bullet point, leech on penis.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the fact that he's like, I gotta, it's on my penis. Everybody's like, ha, ha, ha.
I know.
I'm like, I help the guy out. I mean, it's not nothing.
I know. Well, I love then Monroe gives him his cigar to burn it off, which yikes. And then I love that he gives him the cigar back. I would have enough sense to be like, all right, I think this cigar is through.
Oh shoot, I was saying something I can't remember now.
Shoot, sorry. Well, we were talking about fur and computer graphics.
Okay. So you had Jumanji right around this time. I think that was 95, right?
Yeah.
And they had some chimpanzees in that, and I would imagine that was the thinking, like, oh, we could do something, like that.
It's funny though, when you watch Jumanji now, they look basically like what animatics look like.
Yeah. Oh,
these days.
It doesn't hold up.
Yeah. So I can understand why they did.
I mean, going back to what I was saying, I mean, that's what made the recent Apes movies such a quantum leap forward, is they really licked that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, I highly recommend those ILM documentaries on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I started watching that.
I mean, they're just fascinating to begin with because you're hearing people who were there firsthand working on these films. So just hearing stories about movies you love is interesting right off the bat. But they actually get into, okay, look, we need to create a water simulation. Like, it sounds cool when you see it finished, but like, this is math. Like, we have to figure out how mathematically, like, these things would bounce off one another and write some sort of program. And then we can turn these little triangles that somehow now understand how they would react to one another, can actually act like droplets and blah, 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 and fur and what it's fascinating stuff.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
When you think 95 is when Toy Story 1 came out also.
That's right.
And I mean, that movie completely holds up, but you do see the animation and go, oh, it's interesting, like how the humans, their hair looks kind of, it was easier for them. You can imagine they did Toy Story with toys because it's like, well, they're made of plastic and they're shiny and we don't have to deal with too many textures.
Right. That's right.
So definitely early phase of things. Jar Jar is like 4 years away.
Yeah. Well, and this year, you had, you mentioned Casper.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time you had a fully CG character who was the lead of a movie, essentially.
Right.
And, because Casper is in that movie for like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah, and it's kind of perfect for that because Casper is a really simple shape.
Yeah.
Right? Mostly just eyeballs and a cute smile.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a good place to start.
Isn't it Devon Sawa is like the...
Yeah, right.
I don't know if is he the voice and he's the human?
I definitely know he's the human at the end. I don't know if he does the voice. I've only seen it once, but
this is John Hawke.
Dude, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's weird seeing him young.
Yeah, he's also in Everest, if you remember.
Yep.
He's my point is John Hawke should not go on expeditions. Right?
I gotta admit, I'm not sure I'm buying him.
What, being scared to death?
Dying of fear. Yeah, like, it feels a little silly.
I don't know, right? Isn't that a thing? Doesn't that happen? Do people die of fright? That feels like a thing, right?
I'm sure it's possible, but... And I know he's been through a lot.
He saw gorillas tear his friends to pieces.
Yeah, and then this other...
And then upsidles this gorilla. I don't know.
It just feels like a lot for his heart to burst. I don't know. Maybe it's. Yeah. But then again,
well, let's put you in the exact same situation and let me know how it goes.
Then I want you to lie at my funeral and say it was something else. And then this adorable gorilla came up and said, "Hi, want breakfast?" in sign language,
and Brian shit his pants, pissed himself, and his head exploded. Rest in peace, brother.
His head exploded. Yeah. 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 That can go on the death certificate, but at my funeral, please say I died defending a woman's honor or something. Okay, what do you think about everybody in the Congo knowing California Dreaming?
It seems reasonable, I suppose, right? It's a catchy song.
Yeah. Cool. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I kind of liked it. I was actually thinking, could I do all the lyrics to this song?
I definitely could not. I could do the chorus maybe.
I'd be like, on a winter's day.
I'd be doing that.
To the church to pray. You know, like, yeah.
That would basically be me.
Yeah.
See, well, I think this is just a testament to how there was a time when, these cultural artifacts brought people together because they transcended the globe,
No, in all seriousness, I think it is kind of a sweet moment, but it feels a little awkwardly executed or something to me. Like it felt like it would have been nice if there had been a lot of misunderstandings between this crew or something.
Yeah, a little more of that
in this one
something
moment,
that things they go through that bind them together.
Exactly, and this is like something where for the first time they can speak the same language, right. And it brings them together. I think you could have rung it a little bit more, more elegant.
Well, I think that's the problem is that this entire this whole portion of the movie is very rote.
Yeah.
Because like we said, they're just sort of, they have their, a little episode, something happens and they move on to this next thing. And, and I think all of like this here, this is kind of an exposition scene where we're finding out about, the lost city and whatever, but it should be in the context of them being on the run or on the go.
Yes. It's very, like limp or something. Like there's no urgency. Yeah,
because think about it. You've got Tim Curry is trying to get to the lost city to get his diamonds. Karen is trying to find out if Charles is still alive. Mm-hmm. Peter is trying to get Amy to her fellow apes.
Mm-hmm.
But they should have done something to kind of tie those three goals together in a way where all three are pressing.
Completely agree. There's just no urgency here. I'm not sensing it. I'm not feeling it, and yeah, I mean, even if there was a little bit of, difficulty with the communication with this crew here and maybe snapping at them and them being like, hey, like kind of snapping back in their language. And it's just like, we're helping you and not connecting. And then to have them connect with that song and then get onto a new page. I think that could have been a really powerful thing.
I think even Monroe, right? Like what has him, other than being paid, why is he invested in this expedition?
Right. Yeah.
I
agree.
And because he has that history with Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe tie that in, right? Like they got unfinished business from before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to take you there and I'm going to prove what a piece of shit you are.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Some business. Yeah.
Right.
This is kind of interesting. So this is where the hippo thing happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Hippos, the most lethal land animal. Did you know that?
No. Because
hippos kill more people than lions.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You do not want to get on any side of a hippo.
Hungry hippo.
Yeah. That's the ironic thing is you got this childhood game that I think lulls people into thinking they're adorable. And they will chew you up and shit you out before you even realize you're dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly afraid of its chomp.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it does. I mean, you see those videos, right? Where they stick these crazy things in there, like watermelons and all sorts of stuff, and they just...
Oh, it's bananas. Yeah. This is another, there's a story recently, well, maybe in the last 10 years or so, of a guy who raised a hippo from infancy.
Okay.
And it was his pet. And let me cut to the end. The hippo ate him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they're not pets.
Yeah.
Bro. They're wild animals. Leave them alone.
Ugh, what a way to go. I gotta say, this hippo, I mean, see, this is executed really well because the only light we have is moonlight. So there's basically, light silhouettes on everybody. And we can still tell what's going on, but it also obscures this, animatronic puppet. in the best way possible, because I think it plays really well.
Yeah.
This hippo puppet.
But it is still just a hippo.
Meaning what?
Like it feels like they're straining for business.
Oh, absolutely. Well, because because then they just fire a couple shots and then it goes away. It's like the hippo comes, it chomps, they shoot at it, it goes away. That's
right.
It doesn't lead them anywhere. It doesn't accomplish anything.
This is my point, right? Like it's not, a mosasaur or something, like where it's an otherworldly or an unnatural creature based on what we're familiar with, and so there's an added level of tension. I think what should have been happening is we should have been laying the track for the ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like was that I know they're on water, but was that a gorilla? That was no gorilla.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's kind of a metaphorical descent into hell.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going from the natural world that we know, into something unnatural. So that it's not like you go into the caves and it's so crazy. Like to kind of get us there slowly.
Totally agree. I have to point out, I read that most of the volcano shots in this film are of Arenal.
Okay.
An active volcano in Costa Rica that I have hiked.
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't recognize it, but with our friend Sean and I hiked it together.
Wow.
We took a trip many, many years ago, a guy's trip to Costa Rica. And we actually, while we were on the volcano, it's an active volcano, we saw it erupt. We were on it as it was erupting. We saw rocks shooting out of it.
Get out of here.
We weren't near it, but it was pretty wild. So that was pretty cool.
That's scary.
Yeah. And then the night before, we were in a hotel and we heard boom.
Huh.
And we looked out and we could see the top was red and little rocks flying out of it.
It kind of puts in perspective how inconsequential we are.
If that thing wants to take us out, it'll take us out.
Right?
Yep.
Big picture, Mother Nature's doing her own thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're more an annoyance than anything else.
Exactly. Be grateful that it's mostly leaving us alone.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Man, that is so funny. I mean, just watching, you've really got it in my head now, watching, just looking at a map, standing on the ground. There's just really no urgency happening here.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very languid,
Yeah. Now, you mentioned it earlier, but this does, by the way, I will say, though, this does look really great in that, I mean, these are real locations. We have so many movies now that just simulate locations, and I think our eyes are kind of adjusting to it. We're just getting used to it, but you do get the sense of disconnect between the characters and where they are. And this is pretty cool, watching them go through real fog, traipsing around real volcanoes through real jungles. There's just a real palpability, to their sweatiness and just the leaves slapping their faces. It's pretty cool.
I agree.
So, by the way, I wanted to comment on this. So earlier they jump out of a plane and they land phew. And then the plane blows up.
Yeah.
It gets hit by a rocket. And those poor freaking pilots are dead.
Right.
And they're basically ooh, that was close. I'm not for the pilots. They have this real lack of I don't know, respect for the loss of life that just happened. And so in this moment, another plane that's been sent by Laura Linney's employer, a second expedition to go look for her, has been taken out of the sky, and they come across the crashed remains of it. And they're whoa, damn. Huh. And then they just keep hiking. I'm
anyway,
geez, all these people are dying and they just don't seem to care.
Well, I mean, I would say even later in the film when Grant Heslov gets axed.
Right.
We barely let that register.
Mm-hmm.
So this right here, this gorilla,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I was looking at it like, is that a real gorilla?
It's pretty tough to tell.
Right?
Yeah. And I like this. I think this is filmed well. I think this is acted really well by Dylan Walsh. I can understand that feeling of fear, but having to do the thing they tell you, like, don't look it in the eye, but don't run. And just, I don't know. This scene worked for me.
The myth of the killer gorilla, right, which they allude to earlier in the movie, that is something that when you think about it has been so pronounced, and you realize that in fact, out of all the great apes, gorillas are the most gentle. Chimpanzees are the one who they're going to lose their shit at the drop of a hat.
Really?
Yeah.
See, this is the fun stuff you can do in a story like this, right? Where you have now Amy, who's very much domesticated and can even speak through this robotic glove.
Oh, poor Amy.
Yeah, like trying to communicate with gorillas in the wild. And I just love that her mode is, "Hi, I'm Amy." Like, "How are you?" And they're like, "What the hell?"
She turns to Dylan Walsh to be like, "Kill me."
"Why did you do this to me?"
"Father, kill me."
"You are the enemy."
It is kind of weird seeing Laura Linney in this movie, right? Because like this is not her usual jam. She's created such a distinguished career as like this really well-respected actor and dramatic actress, and to see her in kind of just a pulpy summer blockbuster feels incongruous to me.
With like saying with pointing laser weapons at monkeys and being like, "Let's put these suckers on the endangered species list."
Exactly, right? That's like something you'd see in like a Simpsons parody or something.
It is, yeah,
like,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, when was Primal Fear? Because
Primal Fear was after this.
That was after this? Okay.
Because I know that for sure, because this is the first time I ever saw Laura Linney.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then she's in Truman Show a couple years later. Speaking of Truman, I can't remember if that's part of the commentary or our bonus thing, but
that was the bonus other thing. Yeah.
But anyway, she's great in Truman Show.
Yeah, she's great in that.
Yeah. But yeah, she does, like you said, she doesn't tend to be in these sort of blockbuster-y sorts of things.
Well, and she had some competition for this role. I mean, they were looking at like Diane Lane and Susan Sarandon and a couple other people. And I think, she was virtually unknown at the time of this movie. So I think that ended up being kind of a good choice.
Yeah.
I think all of these actors, the fact that the movie turned out a hit and did okay, it benefited everybody, because pretty much all went on to have a decent career. Everyone in this, nobody got left behind.
Yeah. Well, speaking of it being a hit, I mean, that shows that not only did people show up because they were expecting another Jurassic Park-esque kind of adventure, but they came back. Some people viewed this thing, so it did connect with enough people.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Because you watch this and at least me, I'm like, look, it's not. I'm not going to say it's good, but it fills a specific niche, and it's nice when movies are able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talk about this often. I mean, we want the multiplexes populated with historical dramas, horror films, comedies, romantic comedies, pulp adventures. Like, why not give it to all of us? But this seems like a moment where maybe people were more willing to give all of those things a shot. Whereas now it seems like those things are a little more fragmented. Like, oh, well, the rom-coms we watch on streaming and the $200 million plus epic things, superhero movies, whatever we go to the theater for. But it was nice when all of this stuff not only could be in theaters, but everyone was showing up for all of it. All this stuff. That's, when I play Cinematrix, one of the categories is $100 million plus. Right. And you have to guess which movies potentially made $100 million plus. And I told some people that I play with, and you and I share sometimes our answers too. But if it's a movie in the 90s, I almost always assume it made $100 million plus because it was just a heyday.
Yeah.
For movies and theater going. Like if it's a movie I remember from the 90s, it probably made 100 million plus, at least worldwide.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was.
That's a great point. This summer, I mean, in addition to Congo, you had Pocahontas, you had Braveheart, you had Waterworld, Apollo 13.
Great.
Right? Like Judge Dredd was this summer, Johnny Mnemonic, right? Like it was, not all of them were hits, right?
Yeah.
But most of the movies I said were some degree of successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows, I think I said Casper, et cetera, like there was a real diversity of content, and that's always good, I think,
Mm-hmm.
And I would also imagine that if you were 10 or 11 when you watched this, and if you saw it in the theater, I mean, it would be a real nostalgic experience.
I completely get that. I just missed it, but I can totally imagine 12-year-old Brian watching this, loving it, and then watching it again as an adult and being like, I know, but I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know there's plenty of folks who have a lot of nostalgia for this one.
Yeah. Speaking of when you're talking about like 12-year-olds and stuff, and that makes me think of this and then Jurassic Park or whatever, Michael Crichton's kind of interesting to me. Like, I was thinking about this earlier. Who was Jurassic Park written for? So it became, because Michael Crichton's earlier stuff is pretty adult. Westworld.
And so is Jurassic Park, the book.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so like Westworld's pretty, R-rated and a lot of his earlier stuff, and even like Disclosure and things like those are very adult stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jurassic Park just happened to be this thing then that got, Steven Spielberg, who everybody enjoys his movies, and then, makes a movie about dinosaurs. And of course, kids are going to want to see that. So I was just thinking about when Crichton sat down and wrote Jurassic Park, it just feels like a family franchise now.
That's right.
Right. But when he made it, was he just thinking he was making another like adult thriller?
Yeah. I mean, it really, when you look at it, it's a reskin of Westworld.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Right. And the book is, I mean, I haven't read it since the early 90s, but
same.
It's much more violent. It's much darker.
Yeah.
And
gory.
And this is something, it's James Cameron and Steven Spielberg were, sort of, they were in pole position trying to get the rights. And Cameron has said he would have made Aliens with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And tonally, that's more in line with the book.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, Crichton had his, he had all to himself this air, like, grounded science fiction, right? The same way Tom Clancy had all to himself, espionage techno thrillers, and Grisham had adult legal thrillers. That was like the Mount Rushmore of adult fiction in the 90s. You had Clancy, 100%. Grisham, and Crichton.
Yep.
And I don't know who's the fourth. Danielle Steele. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really interesting because what? Oh, by the way, the guy who plays Claude. I was like, God, this guy looks familiar, and he's in George of the Jungle.
Oh, interesting.
With Brendan Fraser playing basically the same character.
Really?
So I'm like, well, he's found the character to play,
Yeah.
But Crichton, when you look at the books that he wrote, not all of which became successful movies, but many of them did. I mean, they're kind of that. They're adult sci-fi thrillers. Andromeda Strain and Sphere, which is not a good movie.
Yeah, which I've never seen either.
There's a whole run of not good Crichton adaptations.
Disclosure
was okay from what I remember.
It's so funny. The only thing I remember about that is Michael Douglas. They tried, but they were so convinced that like VR would dazzle audiences and like be like the next, futuristic looking sort of thing. I mean, you got Lawnmower Man and everything. And then basically,
hold on a second.
Yeah,
there goes Grant Tesla. Never a good sign when you have to slowly turn and face the camera.
Well, yeah, and then the poor guy just had this really awkward social interaction, and that's his last moment on Earth.
I know. He's like, oh man, do I have to apologize? Should I get him a card?
I
That's
know.
not going through his mind. Anyway,
And then
sorry,
he
you
gets
were
killed
saying.
by a killer ape. No, but disclosure. I remember basically Michael Douglas has to get like a Word file
Yes.
off of a computer, but they're like, but what if he did it through VR? So he's like, you see this like digital version of him walking through, like tense music playing, walking through like an office building, digital office building, just to like recover literally like a Word file off of a computer. It was so ridiculous. But no, I just the whole thing is, I mean, when you really look at Crichton's work, not the film adaptations, but he seems like a very adult, skewing like author, and it's just funny then to think that Jurassic Park, even before the film came out, I was introduced to him by buying that book at a middle school book fair. You know what I mean? It's just kind of funny that it's like, well, Spielberg's making it, so now this is for everybody.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I think the fact that the Jurassic franchise is still going many years after his passing means that ultimately that's probably what he'll be most remembered for,
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He also, worth mentioning when it comes to Congo, he programmed or helped program a video game adaptation, because he came up with the idea for the movie,
mm-hmm.
and then he wrote the book. He sold the screen rights to 20th Century Fox, and at the same time he was coming up with a game, like this is like early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess what they realized later, that all the rights were sold.
Yeah. Well, so he basically knew how to code. I mean, what you said, like he literally made the game himself.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, based on Congo. But then in the contract that he had signed with Fox, they owned any sort of ancillary things dealing with Congo, so including video games. So then he was like, oh, shoot. So he had to tweak it a little bit, but it still came out in 1984 as a game called Amazon.
Amazon, yeah. And instead of Amy the ape, it was a parrot.
How funny.
Yeah, so that kind of works.
That'd be funny if it was still just like Amy, gorilla. He's like, whatever. But whatever the company that produced it and put it out, it was their most successful title.
Yes, that's right.
So it's a successful game.
Yeah, and it predated the movie by about 10 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had Congo, which did well. So you had Jurassic and Disclosure around the same time, and then this.
Oh, that was 95 also, wasn't it? Disclosure.
Pretty sure, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
It was either 94 or 95, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had this run of movies that weren't so good. So, and they didn't do that well. So you had Sphere and of course, 13th Warrior.
Oh, I see. I even forgot about that one.
See, 13th Warrior, the book is called Eaters of the Dead.
I see.
Right. And that movie famously ended up with unlike this, where Crichton had no involvement. That one, he was an EP on it, I think. And he basically recut John McTiernan's edit. And so the version that was released was chopped down, and it's the Michael Crichton version.
Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the McTiernan cut does not exist.
That's too bad.
Yeah. And that one tanked.
Yeah.
And then you had was it Timeline, I think?
Oh, right? Timeline, that's right.
Right? That was early aughts, I think.
I've never seen that either. That's Richard Donner, right?
Richard Donner, one of his last movies that he did, yeah.
Yeah, which people don't really tend to like, right?
I can't say anything about it.
Yeah.
I know Paul Walker was in it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Paul Walker, Gerard Butler.
So now this is very, speaking of aliens, we have these, I don't know what you call them, like Century machine gun sort of things.
Yeah. See, so I think what needed to happen is the movie needed to introduce the idea of these apes way earlier in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we get the little snippets of them on the thing,
Mm-hmm.
But we needed the equivalent of of Indy cracking the book and being like, these things here,
Mm-hmm. Maybe Tim Curry, it's guarded by these mythical creatures.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy, you and your made up city and your made up monsters."
Right, something like that,
Yeah, and then they see weird, with the Jurassic Park, you see a giant footprint and go, "Ooh,
yeah,
made that." Yeah,
or even you have the Ernie Hudson character, he knows about him,
Yeah, so maybe Tim Curry says that sort of thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, come on," and then he legitimizes it and goes, "No, I've heard that legend too."
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, this does look kind of cool. These lasers.
It is definitely very, very Aliens.
Yes, and this is a great idea too. Like having then the automatic machine guns fall over and then like could possibly shoot at them. I think you could have made more of a meal out of this.
Yeah. See, I think the movie just takes too long to get here. Because essentially now it's like 20 minutes of, high adventure or whatever we want to say,
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And then do you kind of feel bad when these white gorillas are getting killed?
Okay, yes. So this is the problem, right? Because the movie is essentially saying that these gorillas were bred so that their most violent, the most violent ones were the ones that propagated, and so they killed their creators or whatever. And so I think the movie assumes that by telling us that, we'll be like, so kill them all. Right. And yeah, I'm with you where it's like, I don't know, maybe you don't need to laser them in half. Maybe you just leave,
Yeah. I'm like, you're kind of on their turf and they're just doing what they do.
So this is the thing, right? What you needed to do was have an in-story. You needed to show that these gorillas are expanding out and killing people.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So in other words, they are a harm that needs to be dealt with. Like these are vicious predators in a way that's unnatural.
Yeah, and I don't even know if this makes sense. Because then you could argue, well, people made them, so maybe this is like fitting that they hurt people. But like you could even, I don't know how this works in the jungle especially, but like some sort of innocent animal mutilated somewhere. And you're like, what would do that? Something that doesn't even know what it's doing anymore itself. They're beyond some sort of, to use the wrong word, humanity. You know what I mean? Like they don't even know what they're doing anymore. They're just killing machines.
Yeah, because what we have right now is they are in the city and they are protecting the diamonds as they were bred to do. And obviously that's bad and weird and whatever, but it's like, okay, we'll just leave then.
Right. Or at least, I mean, I get it, but yeah, they're doing what they were bred to do, and I just kind of feel bad as they're getting lasered in half.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I think that's a tough one, right? Because the movie's view towards the gorillas in general is an empathetic one. The silverbacks and Amy and whatever. And so it feels very bipolar.
Right. But maybe even of its time in a weird sort of way, like that joke of Linney says later about like time to put these things on the endangered species list.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we as a society now have a little more empathy for that sort of thing. Like where I could see that being kind of a joke, maybe in the 90s, where we didn't think about those things as sensitively.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember what the general societal view was back then. I mean, I feel like people were generally empathetic towards animals back then,
Yeah. I don't know. I know there was a little bit more of an irreverence or like it's so funny because like woke and all that stuff is words we hear now. But like, I remember when like political correctness was a big thing in the 90s and it was kind of a funny thing to bucket.
That's what used to be called woke.
Yeah. But it didn't feel as like nasty and pointed and calculated as it is now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But just using Jurassic as a point of comparison, right? Like you watch the movie and you're not like, oh, kill the dinosaurs.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're in awe of them. You're scared of them. You're trying to get away from them, but you're not like laser them in half,
That's true. I mean, and it just kind of shows what an amazing filmmaker, the understanding that Spielberg has for his audience.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to handle these killing. Some of them are just killing machines, velociraptors. But like he knows that like we wouldn't enjoy seeing one completely destroyed by a human.
Yeah,
he finds that balance perfectly. Okay, so something I thought, but I just didn't let my brain go down that path. But then when I listened to I have to credit the How Did This Get Made podcast. They were like, it's so funny when they go in the diamond mine and the diamonds are just randomly like laying on top of the surface. It's so like that. Like what?
That's so true.
Isn't that funny? I remember kind of thinking it, but not. I just wasn't as plugged in enough to really let it sink in. But like, it is very silly.
Well, okay, so maybe because we see bones of other. Well, I guess those are bones of other gorillas, right? But maybe there have been people who made it this far. And those are the diamonds that they tried to escape with, and so they've just been
I like
scattered.
that.
There you go.
Well, it would have been kind of cool then to play off of that, where maybe it's in a satchel, or something. It's like, wow, someone was here, but what do you think happened to them? Why did they drop this and leave it behind? And then you go in a room and find all these bones and go, oh.
I think that would have worked better. Yeah. See, I think nowadays you would have much bigger CGI hordes.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I think that's kind of the thing. Like maybe that's part of the problem is it feels a little like there's probably like a dozen of these guys here, and we're just lasering them,
Yeah.
So according to the book, there's an autopsy scene at some point in the book. And they see that these gorillas are the product of a gorilla DNA and chimpanzee DNA and even human DNA, which let's wonder how that happened.
Moving on. Yeah.
And that's why they're freaking horrific looking.
Yeah, maybe if you made them look even more mutant-like.
Let's pour one out for Mr. Homolka.
Yeah.
See, okay, so, and I'll let you get back to your point, but that right there, when Tim Curry dies, I don't think, like, I feel kind of bad for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the movie knows what it wants us to feel about him.
Yeah, or even spends time to care.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
No, I don't remember. But I alluded to this earlier, but speaking of the verisimilitude of the jungle and everything that I was saying earlier, now you walk into what you said earlier feels like a Universal Studios stunt show spectacular, which is basically just like a box of a room that's red.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. You just don't buy it as this cool, dusty, dark, dank, hidden mine. Like legendary mythic hidden mine, And so what I had read that I thought was kind of interesting, Stan Winston, he was never fully satisfied with the gray gorillas and the way that they looked. But he pointed out, in something like that, you would try to, it's not just about what the suit looks like. It's also, how do you light it? How do you capture it on camera? And he was saying he hated this set because it's just this big cavernous set. And for that reason, you couldn't put foliage or anything in there that could be lit in a certain way that would dapple all the characters in there and obscure the more mysterious, weird, janky looking characters.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I was like, oh, that's a really great point. I mean, when you have these things that are not going to ever look quite realistic to the human eye, well, then you have to light creatively to obscure them a little bit and make them mysterious and make it work. But he's saying in this big cavernous room, nothing for the light to go through and create interesting shadows. You just get these brightly lit, weird looking monkey suits. And it looks a little odd. It looks a little, it does. Wow. We both clocked it earlier, just saying this is kind of a flat looking scene, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And it's interesting hearing Stan Winston comment on his dissatisfaction with it and saying that his work doesn't come across the best that it could for that reason.
I think he's probably on point.
Yeah.
We see earlier with the Campbell character's corpse there. I'm like, why wouldn't you give us the close up? Like, give us his face.
Yeah, totally.
Right. It's weird that they didn't. The other thought I had is random, but like when Karen, she comes into the city, she's like, she calls out Charles, and then she's like Charlie, And I was like, I feel like if you're a Charles, you're not a Charlie.
That's
So
funny.
you've locked in. But then I was like, it'd be funny if she's like Charlie, Chuck, Chaz,
You're right.
Chucky,
Sea Dog. That's funny.
But yeah, that's weird. It's clearly like a dummy that looks like Bruce Campbell. But I'm like, why don't you just get a B-roll shot of him, like his face? We should get that.
Yeah.
With the frozen look of horror on his face or something. But I feel like we should have got that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. It's kind of funny, this tossed off exposition. Oh, Mother's Instinct. What do you know about that? Let's go.
Anyway,
Yeah.
put them on the endangered species list.
Yeah, they should look at. I mean, that's another thing too. Like, you could sort of obscure the violence a little bit, but they're like, look at this poor thing's like arm get chopped off.
That's what I'm saying. Like now, like what we know of Laura Linney, it just feels very incongruous.
Yeah.
It's like Helen Mirren in a Fast and Furious movie. Now you're like, what? That something's off about that.
Yeah. And by the way, like I mean, these things are attacking. This is a bit of a defense,
yes,
for the humans, but I just feel like you could make the execution a little more nuanced, and we might not have those thoughts even enter our minds.
Now, is there some in-story explanation for why the volcano starts erupting?
Well, no, I not that I'm aware of, but it would be interesting if it'd be like they took too much.
These gorillas are jumping right into the lava, so
maybe they're due. They weren't meant to survive.
This is a Darwinian effect.
Exactly. But
Now,
it should have been a result of something they're doing, because they're invaders here.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Kind of like Indiana Jones, right? When he messes with something in a temple, it's
what they should have done. I'll tell you. You have Tim Curry. He gets a whole bunch of diamonds. Okay, and then he's walking away. His pockets are loaded up, and then bing, he kind of sees like a glint out of the corner of his eye. And he goes over, and this is big honking diamond, and he's like, he rubs his hands together, and he yanks it out, and that was the cork that was holding in all the lava.
That was the cork diamond, you fool.
He pulls it out and he's all happy, and then it starts coming out.
I mean, something like that actually in that arena feels possible. You know what I mean? Like, maybe not like that on the nose, but yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like the result of greed or hubris or something.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff could be like a set or something, but I still think it looks kind of impressive and cool.
Yeah, this stuff I don't mind. It's the inside the cave stuff just looks a little too Channel 50 syndication.
Agreed.
See, once you got a taste of that laser.
Yeah, but
what?
But do we ever introduce this weapon? Because they want the...
No, that's the funny thing.
Yes, because the diamond is supposed to be for like a telecom.
That's
satellites.
It's like her pulling out a lightsaber in the third act.
Yes.
Like, what?
Well, because it would make sense if the dad, who's clearly evil, knew this, and maybe even one of the diamonds, like, yeah, telecom, whatever. Like, actually, we have a contract with the military. Yes. We have these weapons you don't know about, and Laura Linney would be opposed to it.
Yes.
So why does she have this weapon? Why does she even know what this is?
No, she like jury rigged. Like she like MacGyvered a laser.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is a thing that bugs me in movies in general, where we see characters outrun lava.
Sure.
I'm like, you're not outrunning lava.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert, but I know enough to know that if there's a lava flow within your eye line, you're about to be cooked.
That's really funny. I hope I never find out.
Well, don't go hiking on that mountain again.
Well, this is probably a part. Yeah, that's right. This is probably part of the Congo book, but that is interesting. This writer, Joe versus Volcano, and then you have a whole volcano set piece at the end of this too.
There you go. Maybe that's why he signed on. He just like, this is his particular passion.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we mentioned Jerry Goldsmith, but I don't know if you looked in the credits. Did you see that James Newton Howard was also credited?
I didn't see that, actually.
I thought that was interesting, so I looked into it. Goldsmith was brought on when this was being talked about in the early 80s.
Okay.
And when it was going into production in the 90s, James Newton Howard was hired.
Okay.
So he wrote, I guess, a tribal chant that was used earlier in the movie. But at some point he had to back out of it, out of the movie, and Goldsmith was brought back. So he ultimately did the majority of the score, but James Newton Howard has some work in the movie.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Goldsmith would always come through in a clutch, man. They'd be like, you got 6 days. And he'd be like, step aside, let the maestro work.
Yeah, and it's a great score.
I think it is.
You know, it's funny. I was flipping channels the other night and I saw this movie. I wonder if other people have nostalgia for this, but it was very terrible. It was called Mom and Dad Saved the World, I think.
Okay.
Or Mom and Dad Saved the Galaxy or something. It was Terry Garr, Jeffrey Jones.
Yes.
Famously, John Lovitz was fired from SNL for being in that movie.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
So I just kind of knew what it was. And so I stopped on it. And I was like, this movie looks bad. Like the production value is very bad. I was like, what is this score? The score's like not terrible. And so Curiosity, IMDb, Jerry Goldsmith.
Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah.
I mean, my man was cranking stuff out in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like if it was an action movie, easily, you know, better than the 40% chance that it was Jerry Goldsmith, you know?
Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah. Goldsmith,
I love, by the way,
Horner, you know, they were doing a lot in the 90s, you know?
Oh man, Horner.
Yeah.
R.I.P. He's a legend. I love her like shooting a satellite from space. Just with this like thing, like take this. You know, they like
well, and I love that Joe Don Baker, man. He's in that one tier. What about the diamond? My diamond. Diamond.
Yeah. She even has to like spell it out. This was never about your son. Screw my son. Where's the diamond?
My diamond's my real son. I never loved him anyway.
I just love the idea of like being able to like lock onto a satellite from like the ground and just.
I feel like people knew enough in the 90s to know that was probably not realistic.
Right.
And they're like, we don't care.
Or like, I wouldn't want to stand next to her. That feels like there'd be a lot of firepower.
Possibly.
Well, now we get the sad goodbye. Amy wants a boyfriend.
And yet it's a better life for her.
I hope. I got to be honest. I mean, these silverbacks seem kind of welcoming, but she is not conditioned for the wild.
That's a good point.
Right? She's been fed food out of coolers and sedated when anything scary happens. And
she got bananas with pills in them.
Yeah, while wearing 3D glasses with her buds.
The first time she asks for a martini, they're going to go downhill pretty fast. Yeah.
That would actually be funny. And, you know, asking for a martini and the other one's like, what's a martini? And she's like, no. And then we just cut back to the humans in their hot air balloon. Like, well, that's the end of that chapter.
Oh, man.
But I don't know. I mean, I can understand people being like, oh, it's weird. Oh, they love each other. I'm like, nah, this is very sweet to me. And
the Peter, Amy stuff, I totally track with.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. You know, it's convenient that the volcano erupted just in time to wipe out any evidence of the lost city of Zinj. You know, it lay dormant for God knows how long, but again, we just needed that pulling the cork scene with Tim Curry. That would have made it.
All we needed was pulling the cork. That should be added. Like jump the shark. You know, like pull the cork. Like that means like, oh, they had an opportunity to do something they didn't capitalize on. They should have pulled the cork.
Now the thought I had with this is, why would they assume that they won't get shot down?
Yes.
Here, right?
Back in the air. Yes.
Right.
Well, I was also thinking it's funny because they're like, let's see where the wind takes us. And then my brain was like, hilarious if the wind was blowing them toward the volcano. And they're like, ah.
Okay. Now explain to me why she has the diamond thrown away.
There's no point, man. They went through so much.
Right?
No one will benefit from it down there.
I was thinking about that. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
No, they're not stealing from a culture. They're not stealing from like a museum. You may as well keep that as some sort of like I don't know, benefit out of this entire thing.
Yeah, it was so baffling to me because I'm like, a better button would have been
yes,
one of the characters finding it and like, oh look, there you go.
Yep.
You know,
and like maybe the guerrilla program, that Dr. Peter had was like losing its funding,
Yeah.
and something like it benefits them in some way. That's noble.
Right, something. You have them look at the volcano and be like, it's like it never existed, and then holds up a diamond. Monroe, maybe he's like, "Are you sure about that?" Kind of thing.
Totally.
And maybe he Monroe finds it and he just tosses it to Peter, something like that. Like he doesn't need it.
You give me that feeling where I'm getting like giddy, and I'm like, Zachy, I want to write a movie with you. This would be so much fun. Just spitball in a room.
I'd love it. Well, I love workshopping when we watch this stuff.
Well, okay. So now we're watching the credits. I really wasn't exactly sure how I felt after first viewing. This was a blast. I could see now I have like sort of a familiarity with it and I know what it is and I can kind of laugh at parts and also be like, oh, that part's not so bad. And I can see it being one of those movies where if I was flipping channels, like, oh, this part's like kind of fun and stopping on it. Whereas I had no relationship with this before.
So I'm very curious about that. So when you first watched it like 2 days ago, you're just like, what did I just watch?
Kind of. I mean, it just felt like.
By the way, real quick, under featuring, we have Adewale, right? And that's Mr. Echo.
Oh.
And he's got a very elaborate last name,
I was going to say, they don't even give, he's like Cher there.
And I'm like, I was like, hey, I guess that's all you need. It's just the one name.
Yeah.
There's Jimmy Buffett as the 727 pilot.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
No. I was like, and Frank Welker, of course.
Naturally, making the gorilla noises, of course. Amy's voice, by the way, they initially were thinking of Kim Basinger.
What?
Which, like, that would sound kind of horny, probably, right?
See, that's where it would have gone wrong.
Yeah. So
right?
they did the right approach to that.
Oh, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter, mix me a martini. Like that'd be. I don't know about that one.
Okay, sorry, you were saying.
No. I was confused. Like I said, with the Siskel and Ebert inside of me, kind of arguing over, is this campy and fun, or is this just a bad movie?
Mm-hmm.
Is this like I just didn't know because I wasn't quite prepared.
Yeah.
But now I kind of see it for it's kind of all the above, and it does make it charming in its own way.
Yeah.
As an artifact, I would say. I don't know that I would recommend, like, I'm going to leave this room and then go tell my brother, like, what you should watch tonight?
No. Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely, I look at this and just as our conversation, alludes to, I see the ways it could have potentially been a more engrossing adaptation. Again, not having read the book, I should say, but yeah, it was of its time. Mm-hmm. And, I always say, like, there was room in the marketplace for something that was a little off kilter like this.
Totally.
And even in its imperfections, I mean, it's it allows us to have a conversation like this where, we laugh a lot. And I think that's a good thing,
I agree. And to your point earlier, if I was 10 or something, and saw this for the first time, I could totally imagine it imprinting on me in a certain sort of way. And then years later, watching it for fun to be nostalgic.
Yep. By the way, we should say orchestrations by Alexander Courage. Alexander Courage, of course, wrote the Star Trek original television series theme.
Wow.
Yeah, he used to work with Goldsmith a lot. He would take the music that Goldsmith wrote and tweak it or whatever, and sometimes he would conduct his orchestras too.
Wow, that's cool.
But hey, that's our thoughts on Congo, and let us know what you think about not only the film but what we had to say. Like I said, we've gotten many requests for this one over the years, so I'd love to hear the thoughts from our listeners. You can email us with those thoughts at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As always, if you like what we're doing, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. And we also have a Patreon page, right?
That's right. If you head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and hit subscribe for only $5 a month, you'll find every commentary we've ever done and every episode moving forward absolutely ad-free. Our free feed will always be available, but this is our way of providing what we believe is the most satisfying way to enjoy the show. So no awkward ad breaks and interruptions. Plus, your subscription goes a long way in helping to support us and helping to sustain producing the show. So if you're interested and able, please head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and hit subscribe. We'd be very grateful.
There we go. And with that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been our commentary track for Congo. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.